Graham Norton has spent nearly 3 decades perfecting the art of the celebrity interview, turning the red sofa into a sanctuary of charm, laughter, and flowing drinks. However, at age 62, the legendary host has begun to pull back the curtain on the rare moments when the magic vanished. While his show is built on the illusion of a perfect party, Norton has recently identified 6 specific guests whose behavior moved beyond mere awkwardness into what he describes as hell. From Hollywood A-listers falling asleep mid-anecdote to pop icons harboring deep-seated bitterness, these encounters tested the limits of Norton's professional patience. What exactly happens when the world's most amiable host reaches his breaking point, and which 6 names have officially made his worst ever list? To understand why certain guests fail on the Graham Norton Show, one must first understand the unique psychological architecture of the set itself. Since its inception in 2007, the program has revolutionized the talk show format by abandoning the traditional, one-on-one desk interview in favor of a shared, communal experience. Graham Norton, now 62, has spent nearly 3 decades mastering the role of the ultimate social facilitator. The red sofa is not merely a piece of furniture, it is a carefully calibrated environment designed to strip away the artifice of a standard press junket. By seating a diverse mix of celebrities, ranging from veteran Shakespearean actors to modern pop stars, together and providing them with a steady supply of refreshments, Norton creates a dinner party atmosphere that encourages spontaneity. The psychological goal is to foster crosstalk, where celebrities forget the cameras and begin interviewing each other. However, this format places an immense burden on the host. Norton must act as a conductor, balancing massive egos and ensuring that no single person dominates the conversation. He has often spoken about the mental fatigue that comes with this level of social engineering. Behind his trademark laugh and sharp wit lies a professional who is constantly scanning the room for signs of discomfort or boredom. Norton has admitted that he utilizes a mental autopilot during particularly dry anecdotes, knowing that the magic of the show often happens in the editing room. In post-production, a 2-hour recording is distilled into a tight 45-minute episode, often hiding the awkward silences and technical glitches that occur in real time. Yet, even with the best editing team in the world, some guests present behaviors so egregious or energies so toxic that they cannot be masked. As Norton reflects on his career at 62, he has begun to identify the specific moments where the communal spirit of the sofa was utterly broken by individuals who refused to play the game. While Norton is a master of masking his own frustration, there was one specific night in 2013 where the host's patience was pushed to a public breaking point, all because of one Hollywood superstar who lost complete control of the party. Expanded summary: in the history of British television, few interviews are as infamous as the February 2013 appearance of Mark Wahlberg. Promoting the film Broken City, Wahlberg sat alongside comedian Sarah Silverman and actor Michael Fassbender. What began as a standard promotional appearance quickly devolved into what Norton has since labeled pure hell. The psychological shift was palpable. As the recording progressed, Wahlberg's behavior became increasingly erratic and intrusive. It is a common misconception that the show's open bar policy is to blame for such incidents. In reality, the production team strictly monitors intake, usually offering only 2 drinks per guest. Norton later clarified that if a guest appears intoxicated, they almost certainly arrived in that state. The fallout was a masterclass in awkwardness. Wahlberg began a pattern of over-talking, a cardinal sin in the multi-guest format. He repeatedly interrupted Sarah Silverman's jokes and Michael Fassbender's career reflections, effectively shutting down the very crosstalk that makes the show successful. The tension reached a surreal peak when Wahlberg climbed onto Norton's lap and began playing with the host's ears, a physical boundary violation that Norton handled with professional grace but later described as deeply uncomfortable. The most damning moment, however, was a lapse in professional decorum. While Fassbender was attempting to answer a question, Wahlberg actually fell asleep. From a psychological perspective, this was the ultimate dismissal of the host and the audience. Norton was forced to navigate the rest of the hour while literally sitting next to an unconscious A-lister. This event forced the production to rethink their guest handling protocols, as it proved that even the most seasoned host cannot save a segment when a guest decides to check out entirely. Norton's reflection on this night is devoid of malice, but it serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictability of live-to-tape production. Wahlberg's chaos was fueled by a lack of inhibition, but Norton soon discovered that a guest who is fully conscious, yet utterly defiant of the rules, could be even more taxing on the soul. Expanded summary: if Mark Wahlberg was a whirlwind of chaos, Mickey Rourke was a slow, grinding test of professional endurance. When the Oscar-nominated actor appeared on the show, he brought with him a bad boy persona that may have worked in the 1980s but proved to be a logistical nightmare in a modern television studio. Norton has frequently cited Rourke as one of his most exhausting guests, primarily because the actor refused to adhere to the basic safety and legal protocols of the United Kingdom. Despite strict indoor smoking bans, Rourke insisted on lighting up cigarettes throughout the interview, forcing the production crew to scramble in the background to manage the smoke and fire alarms. Psychologically, Rourke's behavior was a fascinating study in power dynamics. By ignoring the rules of the house, he was signaling that his personal brand was more important than the collective effort of the show. Norton described the experience not as an interview with a peer, but as looking after a difficult child on a school trip. Instead of focusing on Rourke's fascinating career resurgence or his boxing history, Norton spent the entire hour in a state of hypervigilance, worried about the next disruption. The host noted that Rourke was boring because his rebellion was so predictable and one-dimensional. It lacked the wit or engagement required to make a talk show segment feel alive. This encounter highlighted a specific type of bad guest, the one who is so consumed by their own image that they become a vacuum, sucking the energy out of the room and leaving the other guests, and the host, with nothing to work with. For Norton, the emotional toll of parenting a guest for 60 minutes was a reminder that some icons are better left on the silver screen than invited to a social gathering. Yet, a guest doesn't need to be disruptive to be a failure. Norton eventually encountered the silent wall, a guest so legendary that their refusal to speak felt like a personal rejection of the medium itself. Expanded summary: there is a specific type of anxiety that talk show hosts feel when faced with the silent icon. This phenomenon occurs when a legendary figure, often an actor of great gravitas, treats the interview like a dental appointment rather than a conversation. Graham Norton has highlighted Robert De Niro and Kevin Costner as prime examples of this phenomenon. De Niro, widely considered one of the greatest actors of his generation, proved to be one of the most difficult guests because of his inability, or refusal, to provide narrative substance. In one instance, De Niro began a story that lacked a clear beginning, middle, or end. Norton watched in real time as the energy in the studio plummeted. Eventually, De Niro himself realized the story was failing, stopped mid-sentence, and asked the host, "Why am I telling this?" The entire segment was unusable, a rare occurrence for a show that prides itself on finding the gold in every guest. Similarly, Kevin Costner presented a different kind of psychological barrier, the snooty wall. Norton recalls Costner appearing dismissive of the host's questions, providing short, clipped answers that offered no room for follow-up. However, the dynamic shifted in a way that offered a deep insight into celebrity psychology. When fellow guest Helen Mirren asked Costner the exact same question Norton had just posed, Costner transformed into a charming, loquacious storyteller. This revealed a painful truth of the industry: some stars only value the opinions of their peers, viewing the host merely as a functional tool rather than a participant in the conversation. For Norton, these encounters were professionally bruising because they undermined the democratic spirit of the sofa. They proved that fame and talent do not always translate to social intelligence, and that some stars simply do not feel the need to perform the labor of being a good guest if they don't feel their host is on their level. While these interactions were professionally frustrating, they paled in comparison to the encounter Norton had with a childhood hero, a meeting that turned a fan's dream into a tragic and bitter reality. Expanded summary: perhaps the most emotionally resonant entry on Norton's worst ever list is the late David Cassidy. This was not a case of a guest being too loud or too quiet, but rather a guest being too unhappy. Norton, who grew up during the height of Cassidy's teen idol fame, approached the interview with a genuine, nostalgic affection. He was met, however, with a man who seemed to despise the very legacy that had made him a household name. Norton described the atmosphere as bitter and weird, a far cry from the light-hearted joy typically associated with the show. From a psychological perspective, Cassidy appeared to be suffering from the long-term effects of fame trauma. Having been a global icon at a very young age, he seemed to harbor a deep-seated resentment toward his audience and the David Cassidy brand. During the interview, any attempt by Norton to celebrate Cassidy's past successes was met with cynicism or hostility. The host noted that the experience was not a happy time for anyone in the studio. It was a tragic display of how the entertainment industry can leave a person feeling used and discarded, leading to a defensive shell that even the most skilled interviewer cannot penetrate. Norton's reflection on Cassidy is laced with empathy. He recognized that he wasn't witnessing a bad person, but a deeply wounded one. Nevertheless, as a professional responsible for the tone of a comedy variety show, the dark cloud Cassidy brought to the sofa made it one of the most difficult hours of Norton's career. It served as a stark lesson: never meet your heroes, especially if those heroes haven't made peace with their own history. The encounter left a lasting mark on Norton, reminding him that beneath the glamour of celebrity often lies a profound, unresolved sadness. These challenging years and difficult personalities eventually led Norton to a massive realization about his own future, leading to a shocking announcement that has fans wondering if the worst guests finally won. Expanded summary: as Graham Norton reflects on these 6 challenging guests from the vantage point of age 62, he doesn't look back with anger, but with the perspective of a survivor. These nightmare encounters, the chaos of Wahlberg, the defiance of Rourke, the silence of De Niro, and the bitterness of Cassidy, were the crucibles that forged him into the world's leading talk show host. He learned that his job was not just to tell jokes, but to provide social-emotional labor on a massive scale. He realized that the success of the show depended on his ability to remain a neutral, grounding force even when the people sitting next to him were spiraling or disengaged. However, the cumulative weight of managing these high-stakes social interactions for nearly 30 years has led to a significant transformation in Norton's life. In early 2024, Norton made the decision to step back from his long-running weekend radio show and hinted at a scaling back of his television commitments. This move is a strategic response to the changing landscape of celebrity culture. In the modern era, stars are more guarded, managed by aggressive PR teams, and often less willing to participate in the spontaneous, red sofa magic of the past. Norton has realized that the era of the unfiltered celebrity guest may be coming to an end. His decision to prioritize his own peace of mind over the exhaustion of celebrity management is a final realization of his own value. He concludes that while he has hosted the world's most difficult people, he has also hosted its most brilliant. The worst guests were merely the outliers that proved the strength of the format. Norton's legacy is not defined by the guests who failed, but by his own ability to keep the party going regardless of the guests' behavior. As he looks toward the future, he leaves behind a blueprint for factual, empathetic, and resilient broadcasting. The lesson of his 62 years is clear: you cannot control the energy others bring into your space, but you can control how much of your own energy you give to them. Graham Norton's experiences show us the hidden cost of our favorite entertainment. Now that you've seen the reality behind the laughter, do you think the era of the candid celebrity interview is officially over, or can another host ever replicate the magic of the red sofa?